Extraterrestrials, and extraterrestrials split into probably about 10
many
10
subcategories
of different beings that we interact with. And so in terms of their interference, it depends on the level of consciousness of the person that we're working with.
This flipping thing over top of Jennifer's face, it's like, we call them the whiteheads. It's like this whitehead, and it's like it was like, and it freaked the crap out of me. I screamed like a 9-year-old girl. It's like, but it's like they're brainwashing us.
One thing that I would say for us is, because of how Spirit works with us, especially both of us were told by Spirit years and years and years ago to not read anyone's material. So I was like listening to one of your other shows, and there's a lot of names, and I know the one name, Stephen Greer, but that's just from what Darryl told me about him years ago. But so we are pretty untouched in terms of what's out there and what people are saying. And so what we're telling you is 100% from our experiences, and that we don't know of anybody's work. So
not in the last several years.
Yeah. So it'll be kind of interesting how our experiences line up with some of the information that you guys draw from. But one thing that Darryl and I wanted to offer as a different way to look at the extraterrestrial UFO understanding is the divine feminine masculine, and how we can really take back our power.
Most people are being influenced by these beings, and I can say that with certainty.
So these extraterrestrials came in 400 BC. There was 128,000 beings that seeded on Earth, 400 BC. So 128,000. Their agenda: we are meant to be more in touch with that animal drive, or the primal instincts within us. They inform us a lot of our environment, but people are going up into the heads and making choices from here, and so we've lost our connection to our nature.
Is that an accurate assumption, that a more evolved being would prevent the world from destruction at the hands of man?
The following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only, and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
And by now you know what's up. Welcome back, one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure, meeting the moment. My name is Mike, an active UFO field investigator in Southern California, with my friend and co-host,
Reverend Stu in Melbourne, Australia.
What's going on today, Stuart?
Just traveling through life as usual, enjoying the good revelations and the maybe negative revelations. Now, I wanted to mention this, Mike. There's a lot of polarizing things happening at the moment. Policies, people, situations. There's very little in the middle.
There absolutely is. We could go on and on about that. But yeah, I'm also noticing, even in the UFO community, as it were, there seems to be signs of some polarization, and it's a little concerning, actually. My view is that anyone who's out there, whether they're small or large in terms of notoriety or whatever you want to call it, right? If you're talking about this, you're a leader of the topic or the movement, and you should act like a leader and not like cast shade on people and things like that. But I think the overall community of people that we are talking to and with and everything, they're not going to stand for, egotistical attitudes. It's against everything that this is all about.
Yeah, there's no real place for that. What do they think they're going to be nominated as ambassadors to the ETs? That's why they want to get in there.
Well, I mean, there's some very big names that maybe seem to think that. And, I applaud everybody's efforts throughout the decades and no matter how long you've been doing this. But at the end of the day, there's no one single person who's ever going to speak for the world. I mean, we can't even figure out who's going to speak for a country sometimes, right?
Yeah, that's true. Wow. Okay. This kind of attitude affects everything then, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And, I wanted to tell you real quick, too, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but two nights ago or something, I had the most terrifying thought ever. And it didn't start off as terrifying. It actually started off as beautiful and amazing.
Wow.
And I felt pure positive energy. I felt love. I almost felt like I was like, even though I wasn't, I was sitting, but I felt like I was flying. I was really like, wow, this is amazing. It was about the idea of, us, and the consciousness idea where we can potentially call in craft or communicate with them just with our thoughts. And it started off as being really fun and cool. And then for some reason that quickly morphed to, oh my God, like if we could actually control these things, who's to stop someone from, using them as weapons and lobbying them at their adversaries. And then there's retaliation. And the next thing you know, the end of the world happens and it's not even nuclear weapons.
That's very interesting, Mike. And that ties into kind of demonology and everything, which I wanted to speak to a guest about in the future, the parallels between calling in entities, how it might relate to ancient esoteric knowledge.
Okay, so let's put a pin in that one because that I was just pondering and then it came through and it was a roller coaster of emotion. And then I thought, like to what you said in the past, if we're coming from a place from all knowing, the only thing left to know or experience is what it's like to not know. And then when you're in that experience of not knowing and then you have the revelation of knowing all, you just implode.
Yep. Okay. I've been down that pathway a bit too, and it's kind of scary. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about with that.
So anyway, let's reel back in because today, I mean, sort of, I don't know if it's in alignment or not, but today we're going to be talking with a husband and wife, spouses who are channelers and healers.
Okay. All right. This topic's relatively new to me, although I did read Seth Speaks and the Law of One, which is channeled information. So I'm definitely interested in what's got to be said here.
Oh, yeah. Now, the interesting part here is we recently spoke with Tony Ghazi, who channeled the Mantis beings with us. Now we're going to be speaking with Jennifer Poland and her husband, Darryl Gurney. Jennifer channels the divine intelligence, angels, and I guess sometimes Mother Mary. So I'm curious, as a reverend, what is your perspective? Like, we haven't even talked to them yet, but what do you think about that?
Well, I'm always a little cautious, but still interested. So I'm going to bring an open mind and an open heart to this, Mike, because like I've said in some previous podcasts we've done, I try not to judge the message. So initially I just listen to what the message is and gauge it for its value and positivity. And then I worry about who it's being attributed to, because while even in the sacred text, certain books are attributed to people, which isn't correct. So I won't get into that because that's a bit of a sensitive topic, but there's still validity in the message that's being imparted.
Okay. Understandable and commendable. Talk about sensitive topics, though. We're going to be talking to somebody who might be connecting us with Mother Mary. And I've got questions, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to be joined today by, again, spouses Jennifer Poland and Darryl Gurney, who have joined forces, combining their unique healing gifts exclusively in tandem to open amazing possibilities for their clients. Jennifer is a writer, healer, teacher, and prophetic channeler who recently prophesized the fires in Los Angeles. So I'm going to have to drill down into that a little bit. For sure, but also brings through messages of the divine, angels, and cosmic luminaries. And her husband, Darryl, is a deeply gifted metaphysical healer of the subconscious and a speaker at the International Conference of Science and Consciousness in Santa Fe and taught at the Agape Center in Beverly Hills, LA.
Oh, Mike, you're piquing my interest here. I'm definitely wanting to hear what they've got to say.
Likewise. So let's bring them on in. Universal Disclosure Podcast proudly welcomes Jennifer Poland and Darryl Gurney. All right, Jennifer and Darryl, thanks so much for your time and visiting with us today. We're excited to talk to you.
Thanks for having us.
It's nice to be here.
Awesome. So a couple things. I mean, we don't really, we're still sort of getting to know each other, as it were. And I sort of want to ask, how did you guys meet, and what got you into the fields that you're working in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I was a teacher of energy psychology, subconscious belief change work for many years. And Jen took one of my workshops, and so that's
10 years ago.
yeah, 10 years ago, I guess.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's basically how we met. We became colleagues after that, and then it was, I don't know, about 5 years ago we entered into a relationship, and we basically combined our practices. Um, but that's a long story, so I don't know if you want me to go into that. But basically, I mean, I taught mind body therapy and had my own process called shadow energetics and so on that I was teaching. And then basically, we also worked with clients like this on Zoom. And, after COVID happened, that we had to work that way. So then Spirit, we do kind of everything Spirit asks us. We do a lot of work on the inner planes. We do a lot of stuff, but Spirit then asked us to combine our practices. Jen also worked with clients one-on-one individually. And at first we thought, oh my God, that's a nightmare. Why would I want, combine our practices? You can't charge twice as much. So essentially we, kind of cut our salaries in half and that, but that's all right because we combine skills. Jennifer, as you know a little bit, is super clairvoyant, and I have this mind body energy psychology background, and so it always, and I use muscle testing to access the field. That's how I would access Spirit. It was like getting yes nos, but it all depended on my questions, asking accurate questions to get the answers that I needed. So that always took some time to figure that out. But with Jennifer's skills, she could look straight into the subconscious and see what was going on. We could get clear visions of past lives, the karma that was created, all of those things that were necessary. And then between that and then the change skills that I would bring, plus hers, we were able to reach deep into a person's psyche and then in one session make a massive change in their life, typically because we're working at the level of cause. So that's a little bit, I mean, Spirit had us go out into nature and get away from Wi-Fi, get away from people, get away from, and that's where we honed our skills. But when we worked together, we learned a tremendous amount, stuff that you can't read in books. We learned tons of things about karma and ancestral patterns and energetic dynamics, ET interference, and we just learned and learned and learned and learned. And then Jennifer channeled the book. I'm sure she's going to tell you about that. And then basically we moved a little bit, and yeah, that's where we find ourselves now.
Wow. So with I mean, we're a channel that talks about UFOs and spirituality primarily, and then from there we go into all kinds of rabbit holes. But I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions. Have either of you guys ever seen a UFO or a non-human entity? I mean, I know channeling, I'm sure is have you seen any physical beings or anything like that?
Yeah. So I'll answer so basically. I don't know how many times a day do you want to say that we've seen things. So, I mean, we were preparing, I looked at a couple of your other shows and so I thought to bring my thoughts together. I think it's interesting because we probably look like, we're dealing with people's healing and it's very much a, helping people get connected to their souls, but what interferes with our soul connection is darkness, right? So in my book Spirit, when I channeled the book The Way to Peace, they umbrella termed it as darkness, but when we break it down in the work that we do, we work on the elemental realm and then we go out into the fallen angels, demigods, titans, extraterrestrials, and extraterrestrials split into probably about 10 subcategories of different beings that we interact with. And so in terms of their interference, it depends on the level of consciousness of the person that we're working with. If it's someone that's having a massive impact in the field, they're going to be on the radar of extraterrestrials and Titan level energy. So when I say Titan level, it's like we're getting out into the bigger effect that person has on the collective. So the darkness, the opposing energies that they attract are larger in nature. And so, but just backtracking in terms of, my first experiences, yes, I've seen physical UFO. I actually when I lived in Ontario, which it's another part of Canada from where we live here, I had a 50-acre property, and I had a lot of retreats and circles. And even in the circles that I led, these were women's circles that would come for meditation and the types of, healing and aligning your chakras and integrating your shadow. But there were so many times where a lot of the women were seeing the ships that were coming in on the other dimension. So it wasn't just me, it was other people coming into the property and engaging in the type of healing work that I did. So there are extraterrestrials that want to help us, and there are extraterrestrials that are like our next door neighbors, where they have good intentions but not always. And then there's the extraterrestrials that are not friendly, and so they're here to siphon our energy. But for years I had I'm sure you've heard the word or the name many, many times from your guest, but Ashtar. So Ashtar came in, and there was contact with Ashtar early on in my career, and he told me who he was. Never heard of him before, and that was what my relationship, how it began with him. And he basically watched me as a human and my intentions and how I worked. And it was like a tryout in terms of how much he would engage with me and how much I would be allowed to understand from what he was bringing to the planet. And I've had many, 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 many interactions with him. So,
yeah. I mean, I could answer that question too from a very standpoint. Have I ever seen extraterrestrials and so on? And so I'm not psychically in the way she is clairvoyant and clair everything, Jennifer, right? So I'm more just like a regular guy, muscle test and that. So I don't see things psychically. And we're in bed one night. I guess it's probably by the morning, or no, I guess it was night. Anyways, I look over at Jen, and can I swear here?
As long as it doesn't start with F, sure.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to use. This flipping thing over top of Jennifer's face. It's like, we call them the whiteheads. It's like this whitehead, and it's like, it was like, and it freaked the crap out of me. I screamed like a 9-year-old girl. It's like, but it's like they're brainwashing us. I mean, we'll get into this more, but the game is not like you see on TV. It's all playing with our minds. They program our minds. They work in the dream time. They psychologically try to create, they take little threads that we already have in our subconscious, and they amplify them, typically, is what they do. Mm-hmm. And then they grow into much bigger patterns than they would otherwise, and so on. So I've had that experience. Back when I lived in Ontario, which is more central Canada, I've had a few experiences. I don't know. I'll share these other ones. I was out in my hot tub, and I love my hot tub, and I would sit out there at night for hours. And it was just so peaceful and quiet, and there's nothing else going on. And it was outside, right? And and of course I go in naked and that. So I'm in my hot tub naked, and there's this, it looks like a big orange dumbbell, the ship, and it went right over the hot tub and into the neighbor's backyard. I mean, that's what it looked like. It was that shape, and it was orange. And I was like, well, that happened. But I go, I got to check this out. So I get out of my hot tub, stark naked, walking into the backyards where I think I see this thing going, feeling, and you can't imagine, more vulnerable because of all the stories you hear about these things. And I'm going out there, I'm feeling like essentially like an animal with an apple in my mouth ready to go to slaughter or something. But so I went back there, and of course, when I looked in the backyard where I looked like it went, I didn't see anything. And but there was that experience, and then
when we were camping, we've seen them, but
we've seen them, and then I had another experience, but Jen thinks it's more elemental. But anyways, that's good for now. If we want more things to talk about, we could share that. Lots of things.
All right. So, just out of curiosity, when did that happen with the dumbbell?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in British Columbia since I was 18 years, and then sort of been probably like around 20 years ago.
20. Okay. The reason I'm asking is I'm going to call it a newer. I'm an investigator as well, so the Dumbbell is now on the list, and it's been for a couple years now. But I think it's more of a newer kind of a shape, and it's almost sounds like there's more of those kind of sightings nowadays. It's almost like an emerging shape, I guess. That's why I was curious.
Okay, yeah. I actually, it came another time when I was in my hot tub, but this time it went in a completely different direction, and it went higher and over to the other side, and then I went, there's that thing again, but that one was not as prominent as the first experience with the. So what is that? I'm curious. What are they saying that is, the orange dumbbell?
I mean, I couldn't tell you any more than what a dumbbell is versus what a flying saucer is. I mean, it's just it's a shape of a craft of an unknown origin.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like how much. Like when we were sleeping one night, I saw a craft over top of us, but the craft actually was in our home, and it was only maybe the size of a watermelon, and it was floating right over our beds. So I mean, we have endless stories of these types of experience. One thing that I would say for us is because of how spirit works with us, especially both of us were told by spirit years and years and years ago to not read anyone's material. So I was like listening to one of your other shows, and there's a lot of names, and I know the one name, Stephen Greer, but that's just from what Darryl told me about him years ago. But so we are pretty untouched in terms of what's out there and what people are saying. And so what we're telling you is 100% from our experiences, and that we don't know of anybody's work. So
not in the last several years.
Yeah. So it'll be kind of interesting how our experiences line up with some of the information that you guys draw from. So I find that very interesting.
I actually spent a week with Stephen Greer in Crestone, Colorado, vectoring the crafts long time ago, and we saw some anomalous things in the sky, but nothing crazy. But yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with Stephen Greer.
But one of the things for me, I have a massive, my dream experience, my astral experiences are very intense. So for me, like I'm looking at portals that are coming through the sky. I'm looking at like superhighways that have, a lot of traveling energies that they're using in terms of, moving from person to person or tying us up together so that it's harder for people to kind of individuate or, deal with their lives because they're tied into another person with deeper issues. So it's like running the three-legged race and you don't even know you're tied to, 5 other people and you're not making progress in your life. So
Jennifer, have you always had this psychic ability? Was there a point where it turned on or triggered, or you always feel like you've had this ability?
So when I was younger, so you can it's hard because I didn't know any different. So I was just very, very sensitive. Mother Mary came to me. I would see entities. I would feel uncomfortable around people. So I was always interacting in the field, but that was just my known. And then in high school, just through, going through teenager things and having difficulties, with independence and parenting, and I shut a lot down. But when I was 28, I had 2 boys by then. They were about 3 and 2, 3 and 4 in that area. 3 and 2. I had a massive, a fairly deep personal crisis that I had to face, and it was kind of an awareness. And this is where I think what we would like to offer. Again, I don't know all of your previous guests' work, but one thing that Darryl and I wanted to offer as a different way to look at the extraterrestrial and UFO understanding is the divine feminine masculine and how we can really take back our power. Because if we're always like, oh my gosh, they're coming to get me. Oh my gosh, I'm scared of them. Oh my gosh, are they good or bad? Like that, we're stepping outside of our power again. It's like, listening to the government, will you do the right thing for me? Are you working in my best interest? It's power outside of ourselves. So I realized at that point in my life that I had forsaken my feminine. So my awakening was the understanding that I hadn't bonded to my children. I wasn't in my feminine because I had sexual abuse, and, the feminine was dismissed. The feminine was less than. And so I was leaning into my masculine all the time, like, work, strive, play sports, go. And so I was raising my boys well, but I couldn't soothe them. I wasn't nurturing enough. And so that deep awakening was the divine creator coming to me and saying, waking me up, and a very strong voice. And so at the time I would call it the Divine Father. So now I call it Divine Father, Divine Mother, depending on what stream of consciousness I'm working with, what side of the Creator. And so that reawoken my ability to hear the divine. And from early childhood, I'd say I want to be a messenger. I want to be a messenger like Jesus. And to be honest, that was my goal. And so at that point, I started channeling again. I would write everything. And every day was something that I set aside at least an hour to interact that way. But I would strengthen my connection through my steps of, I used to call it my steps of enlightenment through motherhood. I was learning about mirrors and about entities and all types of things through being a mom. And so my practice really tries to empower people to meet their spiritual journeys very simply.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm really passionate about it. It's foundational. Our work is very much in modeling the feminine and the masculine. I had really honed my masculine side, and it took me a long time to really heal my rejected feminine. And one of the things that I would offer was, so through that time, as women, when we push away our masculine, our hormones, our feminine, our hormones go out of balance. And we have a lot of women right now that are going through massive hormonal problems. And I think probably your other guests would be talking about our fertility issues. Like, how are we going to continue to evolve as a species if fertility is going to be, going down, right? Our ability to have children. And so this infiltration to the feminine, I think, really coincides with the extraterrestrials wanting our planet, wanting our power, wanting us to self-destruct, wanting us to move away from this very sacred energy that is really so important to the planet in terms of our sustainability and, who we are to heal.
I mean, I think it's good to reiterate that when we say the extraterrestrials, like, yes, there's the faction that are with that agenda, and then there's ones that help, right? And so we can't just cloak them all as good or bad. It is very different, but there's many different ones, and a lot of them have very different agendas, and so yeah, it is definitely a field of study.
That is interesting. So to just briefly go back to one of the things you said earlier, from my understanding, for the most part, it sounds like you're outside of the UFO community. Would that be a fair statement?
So Spirit came to us, actually, I'm going to tell you a long answer to that story, because we had to make we had to make a choice. Okay. So, and we thought, how do we fit into your community in terms of what can we offer your listeners? And I think there's a lot we can actually offer, and they can understand why. But to get to that choice, I have to tell you a little story. So when Ashtar appeared to me, it was like a tryout, if you want to call it like that. And at one point when I went to Machu Picchu, is a very strong experience that I had with the whole, I don't know what they call them. It's like what's the Federation. I think right. People call it the Federation, but basically a panel of very important guides to Earth and the cosmos. And so they were, giving me instructions and so in terms of what I was, here on Earth to do. And so I had my instructions, and I was working with people in greater and greater capacities as, a leader and a facilitator and this and that. But our work, Darryl and I had to make a choice, and that is we had to move into whether we were going to dedicate our time to that or to resurrecting the light body of the divine feminine masculine within all of us. And so Spirit asked us to step forward into the healing of the Kundalini, so people's access to their inner power. And so that choice, though, came after we went to New Mexico. So about 4 months ago, Spirit told us, okay, we want you to go to New Mexico. We're going to tell you exactly where to go. And we said, okay. So Darryl muscle tested it to the pinpoint on the map. and it coincided with my 50th birthday. It was a great experience, kind of a delayed honeymoon too. So we went down there and we tripped through, we got an RV and tripped through Sedona and had some wonderful experiences. And then we made our way to this, we knew we were being attuned, and but I wasn't sure to what degree this experience was going to be, because I had heard about, experiences in New Mexico, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Anyway, so we followed to the point on the map where Spirit asked us to go. We traveled 9 kilometers up into the mountains on a very, very narrow road, and we're in a 19-foot RV, and we keep looking at each other. What's next? What's next? Spirit's like, keep going, keep going, keep going. And exactly to the point where Darryl must have tested for us to drive, there's an opening, and this opening allows our RV to pull off this little road, and it's like the end of a trailhead. So it was perfect. It was a big area, and they told us we would be there for 5 hours. So we were nervous because they didn't tell us a whole lot. They just said your light body. They talked a lot about our light bodies and this and that. So we sat, and I started, connecting, and they said, okay, you're gonna go to sleep. And so I crawl back in the RV, I go up in the bunkie, and they told Darryl to protect me for about 30 minutes. And in that time, he had, when he woke me up 30 minutes later, he's like, I need food now. He's like, I've never been so hungry in my life. He slaughtered and slayed and protected probably 1,000 demonic beings and entity, all kinds of things, for me to be pulled out of my body and to take into another dimension to receive this attunement. And since then, our practice has changed dramatically. The abilities that we have been able to bring back and the connections that we've brought in, this portal of divine light. And so when we look at these beings, to me, they look galactic. So if you want to we want to categorize them as an angel with fluffy wings, that would be inaccurate. If you wanted to say that they were extraterrestrials, that would be inaccurate. I would say that they're galactic, angelic, high-level beings that are touching a point of source that it's undescribable. And so it's amazing, because one of our clients specifically, who is actually quite visual, she when I was doing a healing on her, she goes, and she opened her eyes, and we always ask for feedback. How was it? Do you have anything to report? She goes, I was in this desert up in these mountains, and I knew exactly they had taken her to show her where I went. And it was confirmation to me as to the energies, the portal of energies that we have opened up with these galactic angelic beings. And so, yeah, so that's just a bit of a backstory, but they've asked us to make a choice, because we can't do both exclusively. And so this is where we are. But to say one doesn't overlap with the other would be
intimately interlinked to what's going on with their influence. And I think that might be part of the contribution that we can add. It's like, well, I guess I imagine it's like, why are they here? Why are they visiting us? And I bet you there's a million different answers to that question. But from our experience, it's very much to keep us from finding our light body, to keep us from evolving, to keep us from becoming whole, to keep us from becoming who we are meant to be. We're divine beings. We have this kundalini. We're much more powerful than we ever thought we were possible. And they're trying to keep us from accessing our fullest potential on that level, and so on. And so there's a myriad of ways that they show up in our sessions of how they're doing that. And we remove those influences and so on. But yeah, so a lot of the work is done on the inner planes with these beings. And, but it's not like, most people are being influenced by these beings. And I can say that with certainty and so on. I mean, at least the people that come and see us. So we're almost always dealing with them. They show up often in what we would call, I don't want to freak people up, but it's like a walk-in. In other words, when you are not in your body, if you're drinking a lot, or you're up in your head too much, or you're not grounded and you're not connected to the earth and feeling safe, you leave and you create like a vacuum, or there's an empty space where things can come in. That's often where we see the influence of these beings. And we see different ones come in, and they will have an impact on our consciousness. in a way that's not useful. So we have to be able to see what it is they're amplifying. When we get to that point, we have to change the structure of consciousness that's anchoring them, and then we can use methods to move them out of the person's field. And so, a little different than the Exorcist movie, but there's a infiltration in our sovereignty by beings with an agenda that's not always useful.
Okay. The reason I asked that question was because it was almost like a different take on it, and what we're doing here is trying to we're meshing the nuts and bolts reality with the esoteric and non-physical nature of all of this, and is it all the same stuff? We don't have the answers. We know people see physical craft, and then people see lights. Are those lights physical craft? But anyway, the thing that you mentioned about let's just say, I think, and I don't want to, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the ETs potentially want to prevent us from evolving or whatnot within the UFO community, and specifically the experiencers. A lot of them, in a way, it's maybe almost 50-50, but not really. I think a lot of them get upset when people talk about like, oh, they're here to harm us or whatnot, because there's this feeling of they're here to potentially save us in some manner, and they're all like love and light, and there's different groups of people within the overall community, but it's interesting to have, like, no offense to, but like an outsider's perspective in a similar nature that sort of mirrors what the overall community is sort of going through.
Well, what I would offer, so I was looking for things that we could bring in to show you, anyway, so here, this is a piece of work that we do. We do a lot of work on the collective. So we see clients, and then outside of our client time, we do our own personal shadow work and healing and ego, like enlightenment stuff. But we also do a lot of collective work. And so one of the things that came up is, so the trickery to humanity. So these are just my notes from, I don't know, probably a couple months ago, but that there was something wrong. So these extraterrestrials came in 400 BC. There was 128,000 beings that seeded on Earth, 400 BC. So 128,000. Their agenda, out of 10. So in terms of consciousness, the average human is about 3 out of 10 their consciousness. Okay, think of Buddha as 10 or 9 or whatever, and think of the average human about a 3. These beings were a 5. Okay, so they were above human standards. So to your listeners, they'd say, oh, they're good, right? These are good ones, right? Because they wouldn't know any better. They're like kind of better than me. And their intentions were to speed up our evolution. However, okay, they sped it up. If we were driving at 5 out of 10, and that was the speed that we should have been going, or sorry, 5, say 5 is the speed they pushed it to 7. So now we're driving too fast, and we can't control it, and we don't have the consciousness to drive that fast. We don't have the skills. And so their good intentions at the time, even though they're a 5, they're like, oh, I know how to fix that. I'll give you this. Interfered with us. And I mean, I know this because I never watched Star Trek, but I remember watching it once with Darryl, and there was an episode exactly like this where this non-interference protocol, right? So I do know this.
Prime directive, right?
The prime directive.
Right.
Do not. So I'm not a Trekkie, but I find this fascinating that this came through because it interfered. It has gravely impacted us. So their good intentions are steering humanity in a way outside of what we should be doing. We are meant to be more connected to our instinctual nature. We are meant to be more in touch with that animal drive or the primal instincts within us. They inform us a lot of our environment, but people are going up into the heads and making choices from here. And so we've lost our connection to our nature, our environment, right? And so, and then you couple that with the feminine. And so our intuition is blocked. Our instinctual nature information is not coming in. We're not being informed if something's a threat or safe. And people are making these decisions too simplistically from the mind, and they're saying, oh, these are good, these are bad, or they're all bad, or they're all good. And so that would be short-sighted and dangerous. So anyway, so here we had to do some work with these beings that hybridized and mated and infected people back then, and they're still here, and they're still in humanity, making, maybe there's some of the people that are driving some of this futuristic, pushing us too quickly, in directions that, maybe we aren't ready for.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it's got a lot to do with how we define ourselves. So what are we? Are we human? Are we spirit? Are we divine? And what level of the fractal hologram you're looking at this from? So if you're looking from a point of view of separation, everything can be scary, but from the highest level, really nothing is. So I hear what you're saying with that.
No. Yeah, I think it's really important not to be afraid. I think when I learned so many years ago, my guides told me, and they said, the only darkness that comes to your bed is your own. Because at night I'd be like, oh my God, there's something scary. And I'd see this 25-foot, basically demonic thing standing over me. And my guide said, the only thing that comes to your bed is your own. And that's simply said, but at the time that kind of made sense for me. But I had to, it was the magnets. And why don't you talk about the magnets?
Yeah, I mean, we look at everything essentially in terms of energetic dynamics and so on. So whatever's going on in our consciousness, it's like tuning forks. If these were both A tuning forks and I struck this one and I brought it close to this one would start to vibrate as well, even though I didn't strike it. If this was a B tuning fork and it was bigger or something and I struck it and brought it close to an A, nothing would happen. So our consciousness is filled with our own tuning forks that we got somewhere along the line, sometimes from past lives, this life early in childhood, often from our ancestors, from any conditioning that we got. But they're full of all kinds of distortions. There's good patterns in there, but the distorted ones are the ones we need to pay attention to. And things like, there's something wrong with me, I don't matter, I don't deserve to exist. And these are all frequencies. Other people are out to get me, right? The world isn't a safe place. And so those are all the frequency. They don't stop at your skin. They go out into the field of infinite possibilities. And they find something in the field that has a similar vibration. It shakes hands with that and draws that experience into your life.
Mm-hmm.
So we are fundamentally empowered if we do our own inner work and we become like a greased pole and there's nothing to draw to us. So that then becomes the inner work. But our minds, it's the collective trance, we are very susceptible to being in our minds, most humans. And our minds are highly, highly programmable. I mean, I think it's trippy, it's fun to go to see a stage hypnotist. But if you go to a stage hypnotist, you'll see the guy, I saw a stage hypnotist go, okay, they program the person so that when I hand you the mic and ask you your name, you won't remember your name. And they go, what's your name? And they hand her the mic and the woman goes, oh, she did it like 10 times. We are so programmable. And that's the thing. And so we think the mind wants to be in control because it's actually it thinks it's keeping us safe, but in essence, it's doing the opposite. Our instinctual nature, what Jen was talking about before, is our truth detector. Something doesn't feel right. Something is off, right? Your body will tell you. Like, Stuart, you're right there. And Mike, just a little experiment. Say, my name is Stuart, or my name is Mike, and then swallow.
My name is Stuart.
My name is Mike.
And then swallow. Okay. And now do a woman's name. Say, my name is Lisa, or whatever, and then swallow.
Okay.
My name is Michelle.
My name is Barbara.
And then swallow.
Can't do it.
What did you notice?
Well, it did feel a bit different. Yeah.
You're right. I can't swallow that. So our bodies are always trying to tell us the truth. They're always picking up when something is not right, but we don't listen to it. We ignore it. We invalidate it. And that's part of the conditioning. The body has been shamed. The body has been demonized. The body is associated with,
We've been civilized into our minds.
Right.
Sanitized.
See? And so the whole journey then, I mean, what we're looking at essentially with all this extraterrestrial phenomenon or any other phenomenon from the beings outside of our third dimensional veil.
Elementals.
Right. They're ripples. Ripples. And then so everyone's trying to push the ripples back. But that's not, you got to stop throwing the rock in the water that's creating the ripples. You see my metaphor? It's essentially we do create our own reality, but we do it mostly unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And so we have the unconscious mind, and I'm not exaggerating, is 1,000,000 times stronger than the conscious mind. So whatever you hold to be true in your subconscious mind is what's going to print out, and it's what's going to attract things back into your life. Nature hates a void. So when we push an energy away, if we're all aligned, very much like me, with love and light, and being a new age guy years ago when I was like this, then you push away your shadow. You push away the darkness. You push away the parts of yourself that you can't be with.
I don't want to see that.
I don't want to look at that. And nature hates a void. And so then you will attract that into your life. It's literally mathematical. That's why opposites attract. It's not that your partner's always going to be evil, but it doesn't matter what the energy is. It could be one's quiet and one's loud. One's frugal, one spends money like crazy. You know, one's rational, one's emotional. So we have to figure out what our relation, because the journey is to become whole, is to embrace all our parts, because then we're connected more to the whole, because the divine is whole and our nature is divine. So you can't, but it's like everything exists in polarity, and we say, well, this is good and this is bad, and we exist in duality and we exist in polarity, but it's like trying to have a half a coin, but you can't really have half a coin. You see what I'm, yeah. So that then becomes part of the whole idea, is to use what's happening in your life as a mirror, and to recognize by self-referral that somehow on some level you're drawing this experience to you, and then the wise seeker will say, interesting.
Tell me why.
I wonder why that is. Instead of pointing the finger and feeling like a victim to the circumstance without any power. The universe is way too smart for that. We're fundamentally empowered, but we were never given the rules of the game. Once we got the rules, then we know how to play.
Yeah. So unlocking these mystery portals, are tapping into the ancient wisdom becomes a path through the heart. And so the balancing of the polarities, the balancing of the masculine and the feminine, and the willingness, the humility to walk through the heart, central to, as above, so below. When you walk through the Akasha and you ask these questions and you want to know the truth is revealed. It's like asking, you shall be answered. That is absolutely true. But are you willing to hear the answer? And so we have to, it's the humility of embracing our shadow, embracing our light as well. Some people push away their light, they dim themselves. And so, yeah, this is, so that's something for us that we'd like to share with your listeners.
Okay. Is it possible to do maybe a short little channeling session?
Yeah, of course. There's a couple things that I can offer. One is, of course, channeling. And then Spirit, they gave me one, it's like, I don't know, one page from the book I could read. It's all channeled. So it's your choice what you'd like to, how you'd like to proceed.
Okay. Well, I have actually a couple of questions with the idea that if we did a channeling session, we might be able to ask some questions. That would be kind of cool.
Sure. I can ask Darryl. So we work with, so in terms of, I can do the channeling, and he sets up like the conditions. So like who is going to be the answers, and if we're allowed to do that. So yeah, so ask your questions.
Okay. So one question before we get to that point that was really interesting to me, because I'm actually in the LA area. I'm about 30 miles south of where the first fires started. And I heard that you had actually prophesized that in advance, but I don't know any details. Can you go into a little bit about that? Like how that came? Yeah. How did it come? And then how far in advance and et cetera. I'm just very interested because it's so darn close to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we also have a friend in Tobago.
Tonga or Tonga.
Yeah.
Topanga.
Yeah. So we were keeping track, but so last August, so Spirit says, okay, we're going to give you a prophecy, and the preparation to get the prophecy, it's quite rigorous. And so we often have to, in terms of doing our own, clearing and all the beings that want to get in the way. So we finally get me clear enough to do the prophecy. And I channel it. It was last August, and it was all about the fires that are going to be in the U.S. and related to China and China's, I can't remember exactly how it unfolded, but China's infiltration. And so if you look at some of the, I think, conspiracies that have come out with the fires since, some of this China's involvement. So I didn't check it, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's what was coming through with the prophecy. So Spirit, I put that prophecy up last August, not really understanding the political platform and these fires that were going to unfold. And then in January, I think when the fires, they were around January, the fires were happening.
Honestly, my
it doesn't
days
fit,
blend
but whatever
together.
it was. we were sitting there, and they dropped down and they said, look at that prophecy. And I was like, oh, so I did not even remember that I had put that out. And so I went back to it, and I'm like, oh my God, Darryl, remember when it was so weird? And I kept saying, the fires are coming, the fires are coming. And so Spirit showed me to look back, and they wanted me to use that as some of the, so people to understand, if she got that, then listen to her about this, because I also prophesized COVID. I prophesized that the schools were going to be shut down. I prophesized that there was going to be nano in the vaccine. I hadn't even heard the word nano before. And I was setting the table for my kids to have dinner. We were having dinner. And my understanding of nano was, I bought them, like, they were boys, so I bought them little, I don't know, what do you call it? Like, I don't know, like, anyway, little, like, machine things that move around, robot bugs, right? And they had these little robot bugs when they were little. Anyway, so I'm setting the table, and Spirit just hits me in the head with this, there's going to be nano in this vaccine that's coming. And I was like, oh my gosh. And anyway, so I told a few people at the time, but like I said, it was hard for me to, it's like when you're a prophet, you don't always understand what they're telling you. And so during COVID, another thing that I asked Spirit, because I was unsure of, what this was prior to Darryl and I getting together, I asked them to show me where is this coming from? Where's the genesis of that? And so I went to sleep, and I asked them to show me, because I couldn't, I let my consciousness go. And they showed me draconians. They showed me in Europe, the draconians were, all over Europe, and the money and the occupation of that stream of consciousness all through Europe. And that's where it was, a big part of what was the big money that was behind it. So anyway, so that's just some of the things that came through for me at that time.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, so can we, that was the only other question I had before the channeling questions, as it were. Stuart, did you have anything else before we get into that?
Just a couple of comments. I think it is important to listen to your intuition when you're being guided, and warnings about what's going to happen in the future. I definitely honor and respect that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, it's not something, I mean, we see clients every day, right? So I'm giving people prophecies like all the time about, and I can't tell you how many people come back and say, oh, that came true, all that came true, all that came true. So I definitely take it very, very, very seriously when people give, when they come to me and they ask questions. It's we've done a lot of work to be in a place of preparedness to be out of the way for Spirit. So it's Spirit answering, not me. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess if you could just let us know how it works, and let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we're live. So Darryl has a register. So he's like a shaman, right? So shamans have, different ways that they clear the field. So he is my protector when I'm channeling, because what happens is all these beings want to come in and block me from accessing the omnipresent state. And so I'll say, oh, something's here, something's here, something's here. And he clears them using some tools that he does. And so there's sometimes he has a little bit of a register where it makes a little noise. So I'm going to ask him to
looks
clear,
a little goofy.
Yeah, so clear the field for me. And then we'll ask you what your question is in just a second.
Okay.
Oh.
Because they don't want us to get these answers. They want to stand in the way. They want to trick me. So.
Oh.
But I can feel them.
Okay. What do we know?
So we're just dealing with an extraterrestrial, which we call them multicolored. So
Council. Yep.
Okay. Okay. That's kind of like the opposite of light language, if you want to call it the dark language. It comes through Darryl that as he clears the field. And we're almost ready.
Okay, trying
Okay,
to. Oh,
so
who?
who's going to be there?
Uriel. Yeah.
Okay, so it's Angel Uriel that's going to actually be answering your question. So what's your question?
How did the Immaculate Conception take place in terms of Jesus and Mother Mary?
Oh gosh, okay, I've never asked that question, so we'll see what I can get. So I feel like the anger towards there's an anger in the collective right now. It feels like, I'm gonna say, how old is this thing? It feels like male anger from back. How old is it?
Thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2,000 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like the people at that time, it feels
Yeah.
like what I call it, like Jewish leaders is a
Yeah.
so I'm looking at like the people in charge of the Jewish men I'm looking at are very angry at the I feel like they're looking at Mary like spitting on her, that she's the one to carry the divine.
Mhm.
And so they're doing everything they can to not anchor that energy on the planet. So it's like,
Right.
so the I'm going to call it the disbelief or the doubt of that, in terms of the willingness for us to accept that the divine surpasses what we understand as conception, like a man and a woman having sex to impregnate, is heightened by that energy that's still present in the field. That can't be right. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay. So but am I to go around that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking around now as Uriel shows me that. I'm going out and beyond now to that time. It's like the feminine to be chosen to carry the Christ, like the Christ energy. It was to prepare our own. It's like to honor the feminine at the most in the highest way, in terms of being chosen to carry the Son of God. Like God could have said, "Oh, here's my son," and just planted him on the planet, right? But it was placed in a woman to carry and conceive and to be the creator of this being, to hold it sacredly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think what they want to what Uriel wants us to look at this in terms of, in a different way, is the most sacred being, the Christ energy, was placed in a woman. This was not just appeared to us, and because that could have happened, but placed in a woman to carry, and to honor the feminine journey as such, the sacredness of it, and to remember that this is something that we women carry as a gift. Does that help?
Oh,
I understand that.
Yeah. So did I get it all? Can you check?
Yeah.
9. Okay. So I mean, it makes sense, because I'm like, I was looking at this group of men, and that felt like, the Jewish leaders at the time, not wanting it to be a woman that, is holding this sacred honor and carrying this, and, a woman of her status, right? So she was from, Bethlehem, and, had low status, and wasn't, anyway, so I find that interesting. So.
okay. So can we ask some more questions?
Yeah, of course. I'll do my best.
All right.
Do what they give me.
The next one is sort of like a bookend.
Okay.
What happened with the ascension? Was that a physical fleshy body that went into the sky, or just the light body of Jesus that ascended?
Okay, good question. Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. So he's just clearing the field for me. Sorry, the underworld comes, Often portals get open, so they do everything they can to make it difficult for me to hear and see the images. Okay. So this is the message, I feel, of Jesus that we are still grappling with, that we haven't understood yet. And that is that our physical body is essential to have our light body. And so the demonizing or sacrificing or the dismissing of our physical body, when we eat unhealthy or we push it to, we don't treat our bodies properly, it is the temple of the soul. It's the temple of the indwelling divine spirit. And so it's like he says, of course, it's about the physical flesh. We are in the sacred garden, essentially. We have been all along, and by drawing down the soul into the physicality of the experience, the light can shine. It's not possible to shine without the physical body, for the cells are what awakens, and the nuclear power that emits from each cell is what radiates and shines as it awakens. So he says, absolutely, it's the physical body that must be receive. It is the temple to receive the soul, and it is why being human is so sacred and coveted by so many beings.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this other one is, well, I'll just say it and then we'll see whatever comes out.
Sure.
Can you speak about when someone, like I know someone who recently was on a walk and stopped and meditating, and they are retired, and they're just sort of pondering what happens next, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. and they look up into the sky and mostly clear day, and there was an outline of clouds that basically looked like Mother Mary. Can you speak to that about its symbology or significance or whatnot?
Yes, of course. Okay. It's okay. Sorry, just checking the field. Yeah. I can feel the fear and sadness beneath that person's question they're showing me. So that person, it's like their faith is a little bit shaken, and so they needed that response to comfort them in their feeling of fear. What's next for me? Who am I beyond this physicality? And so Spirit addresses that in a way that shows us when we ask from a place of humility, Spirit always answers. We may not receive the answer instantaneously as that person did, but in the coming hours and days, there's always a response from Source through different ways in which we receive connection, oftentimes in nature, perhaps even in music or poetry or books, or even from something another individual says to us. But when we query these deeper questions, that answer is there for us. The comfort that individual needs is something that will bring them peace of mind. And also when they share that with others, that energy touches others' fear that they have within themselves. So what one receives, one then offers to the greater whole, and the ripple effect of that grace expands.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just a couple more questions, if we may.
Sure. It's fun.
So, what is the purpose of all the bad that's going on in the world right now? Why does it seem worse than usual? And is there a lesson, perhaps in the Bible, that can show us, how this kind of social trauma and stress can lead to something good? And essentially, where is this all going?
Okay. Okay. So I'm still with Uriel.
Oh no, it doesn't.
Yeah. They're bringing through someone else that wants to answer your question.
Raphael.
Raphael. Okay. Okay. We just have to clear the field. 1 sec.
No.
Okay.
Not.
It's only the mind that separates something into good and bad, like the child on the playground that says that person hurt me, but doesn't acknowledge the 3 things that led up to the experience before the strike, perhaps. It's very difficult in our present state to understand the experiences that have led to this moment. If one was to go back in history, the history that is written is conveniently written from the perspective of the writer and negates the other individuals that perhaps were involved in the experiences. One's mind is therefore unable to appreciate the unfolding repeating patterns that are at play. And so the repetition of history repeating itself because the lessons were not learned in the first place is what finds you in your present state. When you give your power away, you do so without realizing the consequence, because the convenience and simplicity that you thought you were receiving in exchange for giving your power away, too tempting. The difficult experience of meeting challenge without shrinking and doing the hard work to overcome the discomfort that you guys now find yourself in is what is being called forth. You must meet these challenges and right the decisions that were made in complacency 300 years ago. There are many moving fractals that are all intersecting. Without your understanding of these moving fractals and repeating patterns, you can't understand why it's at the boiling point that it is. Only know that all power lies in this moment. And so change to these past fractals is not something you have to go back in history to change, but rather make a new choice in the present moment.
Again, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we can decode that a bit. Like, do you understand what they were trying to say?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to, like, when because I'm also looking at everything here when we record. I'm gonna go back and listen to it. And,
okay.
I know I'm gonna get more out of it the second time around because I'm making sure that everything is still recording and all the levels are good. So
absolutely.
But I mean, if you want to still unpack a little bit more, or Stuart, if you have anything to interject about that.
Well, I had a different question, if you don't mind, and I was interested to know about the emergence of AI. What's happening? And I know we shouldn't necessarily view something as positive or negative because we're falling into duality in that way. But I'll talk in terms of motive. Then, what's the thrust here? What's the motive with the AI?
Yeah, good question. Okay, I'll see if I can answer that question, if they'll give you an answer. Not so much. I think I get a different question. I feel like they'll say something different. They might not answer it directly. Let's see what they give me. Okay,
that's fine.
More free flow. Okay. I feel like I'm picking up on something in Stuart, something that it's like an opinion that he's upset with.
Yeah.
Okay. So that opinion then, so this is where Spirit is giving an example of asking it from a place of pure curiosity, like he has an opinion, right? So now the Spirit can't answer it because there's a position in Stuart that's already been decided. Okay. So can we remove the position, or do I have to, can I get more from Raphael? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense?
That's come for session.
Yeah. Well, do you have a strong opinion about it? Like, I feel like Spirit's like, we would give you an answer, but you have an opinion already.
Oh, that's okay. It's still forming. So I was trying to stay away from positive or negative.
Yeah.
Because on one level, nothing's really artificial, because if everything's one, everything's conscious, then even AI is conscious already. So I don't see it necessarily as positive or negative, but it's moving us in a different direction. Some powers may be using it to try and steer us in their own selfish direction. But then there might be positive things, because everything you do in this reality, positive or negative, seems to create the exact opposite. It has to, because we're in a field of duality.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just feel a structure of consciousness in you that it's like there's a desire to, even though your conscious mind is very open, I can feel that your subconscious mind wants to control something. And so that's where the part of you, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are kind of bumping up again. And so you're going through this experience and you're like, you're consciously making this, kind of going through philosophical understanding, but your subconscious wants control. And so it's not quite able to, I can't
come
quite
through that. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we can get answers, but a lot of times we'll ask, can we ask this question?
They'll say
no.
For the same reason.
Yeah.
You're not able to actually pull that answer down.
Yeah. But it's actually pretty good, the answers we have got so far. So we got three yeses, I think. And but that's I mean, it's a great question, and there's so many things happening now. There's transhumanism and artificial intelligence and all kinds of crazy shit and so on. But I think what's really important is that we focus on the ripples we're sending out. I don't know if you heard of I think they were called the Maharishi experiments, and it's very, very interesting, right? Where they took these meditators and they put them in a city, let's say, and then there was a certain amount of them. It was the square root of 1% of the population of the area, which is a very small number. And they brought up the feelings of peace in their body. And when they did so, every parameter of violence and crime and emergency hospital room visits and car accidents would drop by, I think, about 30%. And they did this experiment over and over, and I always got the same results. And when the meditators stopped, they just came right back up. So our consciousness is intimately affecting what's playing out and that. And so when enough of us not just hold it with our but actually change ourselves from the inside out, change our subconscious, align with our divinity, and remember who we are, and then that is going to be the reality that we collectively create. And then that then becomes, because these things right now, they're all reflections of so many of the distortions. I love the idea of thinking that the earth is our extended body, right? And that we're all a cell. And so these wars over here are like little cancers and stuff like that in our extended body. It's like we're all leaves on the same tree. And so, but it's like the metaphor is like we're all fighting each other, but once our consciousness gets to the level where we recognize, like you're saying, this unity consciousness, then everything changes. We can't, Einstein said we can't solve our problems at the level of thinking that created them. We have to change our thinking, but we can't just do it in our mind, but we have to change our consciousness. And then that will be reflected back in our reality. It's a mirroring reality. And so, we're all trying to, oh my God, look what's happening out there. But what's more interesting is what's happening in here that's contributing to that. Because all the anger and unresolved pain that we have in our body is what we're contributing to the wars and the fighting and the grievances we see in the external. So then as we start to do our own work, and then the more, it's like the birds on the beach, they all turn and they all turn, and then they slow it down frame by frame. They go, which bird turns first? And they still can't find a bird that turns first. And so this is an example of the collective consciousness, but we're exactly the same humans. It just doesn't quite look like that, or a school of fish, but we are all connected. And as we start to shift, then we can fundamentally recreate a world that is worth living in, because right now it's an unsustainable trajectory. And that's what prophecy is essentially all about. Prophecy is not oh my God, doom and gloom. It's the gift of prophecy. They're saying the choices in your consciousness is on a trajectory to create this likely outcome. And they go, is that what you want to experience? And I go, no. It's like, well, what would be another choice, right? And then we can shift it and change it, because there's probable futures and possible futures, and we can make the possible futures bigger and the probable futures smaller. And I think right now there's always chaos before change. In cymatics, when you look at, they pump sound into chambers with lycopodium, and then there's like particles on a plate, and the sound will take the particles and put it into a shape. And then it goes from a low frequency doo to woo to a higher frequency. Sorry, I got a bad voice. And that the shape will take a more sophisticated, it'll go from a circle to like a pyramid. And then if you make an even more sophisticated or a higher pitched sound, it'll go from a pyramid into a star tetrahedron or something. And so the filings, before they go from one shape to the other, they go like this. And then they come into the new shape. And then they come into the new shape.
Chaos.
There's chaos before change. And so we can't, it's like labor. We're to look at labor and say, oh my God, that's terrible. And they go, oh my God, stop that right now. But it's giving birth to new life. So we can't be afraid of the labor. We have to step into it and meet it with courage. And we're all on this journey, us included, but this is then what's being asked of us. And that's why it's consciousness in the final equation that will shift things in a way that would be worth experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Really great points. Thank you, about how we're manifesting our own reality. Absolutely on board with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was actually the perfect sort of lead up to one of my last questions. Anyway,
Okay.
Some people think, and potentially myself included, that we're on the verge again of nuclear war.
Yes.
And others believe that the ETs, or the NHIs, whatever you want to call them, will simply not allow humanity to destroy the planet.
Okay.
I hope that's the case, but is that an accurate assumption, that a more evolved being would prevent the world from destruction at the hands of man?
Well, I mean, Darryl told me this. I mean, this is not my stuff, but I know they apparently have before. So and I think other people have brought through that.
Yeah, I think it's
Channel.
Well. Oh, channel.
Yeah,
okay, we'll go straight to there.
Sure, yeah.
Uriel again.
Okay, Angel Uriel is going to answer that question. It's like the desire that little children need a parent to interfere.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the past, our evolution required this interference where the parent steps in and takes the toy away. But it feels that we're coming to a place in our evolution that we need to experience the consequences of our choices. And these consequences may be very uncomfortable. And this will not be the first consequence that we have to face, in that we have made decisions that had dire results in the past. And I feel like they're just showing me various other, things that we've done to the earth that have greatly impacted the earth for a very long time. Like I feel like Chernobyl and things like this. How much of the message do I have?
Just a little bit more.
Okay. There's something in the way. They're going to give me a little bit more. Just 1 second. It's like we will never learn if we don't take full responsibility for our actions. So that includes who we put in power, who we give our power to, and also the impact that we can have in our individual lives. The serious problem that we face is a result of us wanting someone else to handle it or clean it up for us. The earth being the garburator for all our throwing things out and abuse to it, it can no longer be that for us, nor if someone pushes a button and we've put them in power, or we've, been a part of these past fractals that were given in the previous message, that we are a part of these issues. So we stand fully in the position that we have to hold the full responsibility for any actions that anyone takes with pressing that button. So no, we
We're on our own.
won't be saved. And I can feel the power on that. And they're like, no, we're not bailing you out. So I think it's great personally. I think that I can see the little kid behavior that everyone's walking around with. And I actually have something they want me to read. It's a very short thing, but people don't want to take responsibility in their lives. People give up too soon, leave their marriages, quit a job, walk out, take the easy path. It's over and over and over again. And people are cheating to get ahead, and everyone's, the quick dopamine response, and spirit is just not going to, what do you call it? Tolerate or allow it, so at some point a parent has to put his foot down, and the foot's coming down. And I can tell you that as a prophet, and I know you probably haven't seen some of my prophecies, but they're like a loving but very warning. And if you look to the prophets, some of the flavor that's similar to the prophecies that are Enoch. Enoch was a very strong prophet. He didn't sugarcoat it. He laid it on the line, and my personality, my style, and my preparation is very much like that. If you read any of our Google reviews, most of them, people will say, well, Jen says it straight up, and she'll tell you how it's going. And oh yeah, and anyone who comes, well, I know, but then you know what? I help them help themselves. I help them from making disastrous choices or going through something they don't need to go through. And so one of the things, like we have endless stories. One is my own cancer. I had a full hysterectomy. I had to learn all my lessons with rejecting the feminine. I didn't get to finish the story earlier, but when it came back and spirit said, it's going to come back if you don't learn all your lessons. And it did. When it did, and the surgeon said, oh, there's a lump here, we came home and we did 5-7 days worth of spiritual work. The night before my CT scan, to validate that the cancer had come back, spirit said, okay, we're going to take it because you have learned all your lessons. And so Darryl, they told him to use his Vogel crystal, and the whole cancer was removed. And when I got the results from the CT scan, the surgeon was like, it's clear. I don't know how that happened. He called me 2 weeks later. He made me go back and have more tests because he had to call the city. He didn't believe the results. They wanted to do more tests. They were clear. So I had a divine intercession I earned that. And so I rejected my feminine, and that's what led to my uterine cancer. And that's why I had to have a full hysterectomy. So I paid the price for that. And I now don't have a uterus. I take bioidentical hormones, and that was hard. And I had to go through, and it was right after we got married. It was a really difficult time, but I stepped up and I learned all of the lessons that I possibly could embrace. A lot of them were collective lessons that I was working on for the collective. But the night before, I would have had the imaging to say, yeah, it's still in there. They said, okay, now we're going to remove it. So do they intercede? Absolutely. Do they intercede when you've done your work? Absolutely, they do. And they tell us with all of our clients, okay, we're going to give you a push here. Now we need you to do some work, and then come back. And in 3 weeks, come back, and we're going to give you another hand. So spirit does help, but too many people are not doing their work.
That was beautiful. Thank you. So they're helping to identify the issue, not necessarily solving the issue.
Yes. So I have something to read you. They want me to read. Is that okay? It'll just,
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to set it up. So the night before, we're going to New Mexico, right? So this is the night before we're leaving to go on this esoteric trip to get this upgrade. I have this crazy out of body astral enlightenment thing on top of it. So this is where they take me and they show me, and I had to write it all down because they wouldn't let me wake up Darryl. I had to do this by myself. The darkness wants to scare you. This is the truth about your power. This is what they show us. The darkness wants to scare you from even wanting the truth. Its power is only held in illusion. If you believe them, you stay prisoner to a hell situation. It's like following the yellow brick road, facing our demons and the wicked, but we do so innocently. To reveal that the Wizard of Oz all along behind a curtain, deceiving us that he is the Almighty, only to see how small he really is. It is like walking through the valley of shadow and death. You must know that they cannot keep you from seeing the truth if you truly desire it with all of your being. This becomes the goal, to reconcile all of yourself that you wish to avoid, delay, deny, or push away, pushing away the truth. The false idea that you cannot handle it keeps you in it. The breaking free of the veils, only to see the biggest fear revealed. Mine, in this journey, this experience that I was going through, was that this was all a pointless game. I was in this amusement park, no one was there, it was just pointless, and I was looking around. This is spirit taking me to face my biggest fear. It was soulless in nature, but my faith was not shaken, and as I looked around, I felt I couldn't escape their grips. But then all of a sudden my faith shattered this image that I was in, this amusement image that was not true. For what was then revealed was that I was God, my own creator being, creating my reality all along, but mostly doing so unconsciously. Only now I create my life from a place of pure potential, where I serve to experience a unified field where the one works for the good of all. I create for the sheer experience of creating my masterpiece of art, showing my beautiful creation, my true self, courageously revealing myself as my own work of art until I do it again. And so in that, I'll just give the visual. So after I see this empty amusement park, and I'm like, this is not true, because my faith just like burst through my heart and it shattered the image. And I became the child again. I became the child, and I was painting the universe with my paints, and I was painting my own universe, and it was revealing the art of the divine that's being created through me, but through all of us, right? So it was just my own experience. But I think this revelation, what they're trying to show me is that return to innocence, right? The return to that inner child state of innocence where wonder and expressing ourselves is not conditioned, it's not limited, it has the unified potential of the void. And so we're touching that experience again. So anyway, it was something that I went through, and it was beautiful. And I love the analogy of the Wizard of Oz because I think it's such a powerful story that we should pay attention to.
Wow, that actually meant a lot. Before, okay, so it's, I don't know. We did the intro before we started, and what you haven't heard yet is that I was telling Stuart about a thought that I had just like 2 days ago. It was utterly terrifying, and that really resonated with what you just said. But it was, I don't know, the connection I just made was that the dark side doesn't want you to know about that, and they try to keep and then so. For me, that was potentially the dark side coming in and giving me the fear to maybe prevent that thought from going further in a nice way.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like when you let go of that control, that control I was sensing in Stuart is something that feel like when you're young, you can control, right? And so it's in there still, and so it negates your intuition, your feminine, and your spiritual, deeper understanding of your true self. And so when we let go of that control, it's like that faith arises. And I was like, it was like instant, like there's just the shattering of this illusion comes down. And it's so powerful and easy, yet so challenging for the ego, right? So my guides have taken me to extreme altered states of detachment over the course and I knew, okay, I'm not ready to be that detached yet. I was a mom. I was like, oh, not yet, not yet, not yet. But now with Darryl holding that protective place, I can go to these extreme states of letting all of my egoic conscious, my conscious structures go, and I can just let go because I'm not afraid anymore, because there is a fine line between insanity and sanity. It is a razor's edge as you're walking out there. Your ego has to be very strong to be able to handle it. So
kind of wondering on maybe a little bit of a selfish standpoint, but is there any type of a message or anything that either of us should should hear or
yeah, of course. If I was in your spot, I'd be like, tell me something. Give me some juice. All right, so we'll see. I'll see if there's anything in particular. Not to be afraid of something, which
There's some belief points.
Okay, so you're gonna cut all this out, right?
Potential. I mean, if it's maybe not.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Well, Mike, there's when I get with you, Mike, there's something you're hanging on to.
Yeah. Can I get a channel message from him?
Yeah.
Okay. He let someone down.
Yeah.
It's like he has to let go of that. It feels like he feels really bad about letting someone down. I feel that person, he wasn't the one to help them.
Right.
And so there's but it's like a pattern for Mike. It's like something that he's learning, and that person actually was taking advantage of him.
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense?
I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Hold on. We'll give you male or female. We'll nail it down.
Female.
Okay.
Female. What age did he know her?
29.
When you were 29. Was it a friend or someone he was dating? Oh, his mom?
Oh, yeah.
Was it your mom that you felt like you let your mom down when you were 29?
Wow. Okay, I have to think back to see if I think what you're saying.
Yeah, I can feel your mom coming through. She wanted you to do something that was against your soul. It's like maybe, or against your what you wanted to do.
Okay, so I think I know potentially who we're talking about or whatnot. Definitely wasn't expecting this. This is very interesting. And is there a way that could a name come through perhaps?
Okay, I have to give you the name. Well, I mean, no, I'm not going to get a name. That's not my talent. However, hold on. But if you give us names, Darryl will muscle test and he'll say that person. So you don't think it's your mom?
Well,
but give us a bunch of names.
Okay, so there's really no way for me to. I have two moms. I'm adopted, so
yes, okay.
That's why I was trying to.
Oh, which mom? Your biological or your adoptive mom?
Yeah, can we get to that?
Yeah, I think I'm getting your adoptive mom's dropping my finger.
It's your adoptive mom.
Okay. See, I thought I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
Yeah, sometimes there's something here though. Hold on one sec. There's something in the way now. Yeah, she wanted you to do something for her to prove that you held her maybe in a certain way. Like if you do, like I know she's maybe not consciously saying this, like, so you have to understand the symbolism of spirit, right? It's like, if you do this for me, then that means you love me the most. Like it feels like that. Was there like if you follow in the family business, then that means you love, is there something that you made it, like, was there a condition set up at that point?
I'd have to really ponder that one.
Yeah. Well, it's been probably some time, and oftentimes, like obviously you're running a podcast right now, so you're not in that, and sometimes it just takes a few minutes. Like we may get off this show, and you're like, oh, I know what that is, and it'll come to you. So so that's the message from spirit. You have to let go of carrying. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's 80% your adoptive mom and 20% your biological. I think it's like a triangle scenario or something, maybe relative to that. So I was adopted too. I mean, is that something you knew both moms at that stage of the game? They were both in your
yeah. So, and again, whether this part stays in or not, I don't know. I'm open to either one. My adopted mom is now deceased, but she's always my mom. I love her to death. My biological mom is still alive. And when I met my biological mother, I actually said to a friend of mine that I felt like I was, and it sounds weird, but I felt like I was cheating on my mom because I have two moms. And the irony of that situation was that when I was born, I was my biological mother's secret, And then when we met, she was my secret.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
And when did you meet her? How old were you?
it would have been, I mean, I got to crunch the numbers, but it would have been around that
Okay,
age that
that's
you
what it
mentioned.
feels like to me. So it felt
Yeah.
like you were going against there was like, this is see, her, part of her would have known. Did you ever tell her that you met your biological mom?
I did not.
Okay, so the part of her that knew that, right? See, when we're in a relationship, if someone's cheating on us, there's a part of us
Oh my
that,
God. Is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah, she knew.
she
A part
knew
of
that
her,
I knew, or
yes,
she knew that.
and you have to let go of that guilt. So because a part of her in the non-local field knew that you stepped outside the relationship and met your biological mom. Okay. And so you're not coming clean or whatever. Spirit wants you to let that go because there's a part of her that had to go through that experience. Like there was a life lesson. And then your life lesson of not being comfortable with being like, Mom, I needed to find out who was the woman that carried me. And it doesn't take away my love for you. You standing up into your power is what your lesson was. So it feels like the nice guy energy in you. I can feel nice guy energy, which I know probably gets you into some trouble. You have probably what we call a fractal. And this is what we were looking at in the history, right? When we have historical fractals, that's why we're in the situation that we're in now, is we have to go back and look at the other fractals that are repeating what we didn't learn these lessons. So there'll be lessons that are present in your life that are happening that we have to look at that first time and say, you didn't learn the lesson there. So now that's why the nice guy stuff's coming up again, probably, and you have to learn to step into being confident in your inner authority, what you say yes to, what you say no to.
Okay. Definitely wasn't expecting any of that to come forward.
Well, see, this is the thing, right? As they say, the problem with the unconscious is it's unconscious, right? We don't know what's down there, but it is what's driving. And so there's guilt and shame. This is how we've been plagued too by the dark side.
Yes.
There's so much guilt and shame, and we can't connect to our innocence. And that's what keeps everything repressed and denied. I don't dare let anyone see that. It's like this big secret. And our body's going to hold on to all that repressed emotion, and it's going to turn sour, and it's going to create inflammatory processes and so on. So we have to bring it into the surface and move that energy and get into a place of like reconciliation with the whole issue, essentially.
Yeah, it feels like you have to become more comfortable with maybe some of your what you would call negative emotion, like anger, or some of more the what you would consider negative, and honor them. See, anger and limit, those things have a message for us, right? When anger arises, it says, "Oh, you're violating my boundaries. I better pay attention to that." But a lot of people put a smile on and just push through, and I'll just go around, or I'll compromise, or whatever. So we're always kind of the good guy. I'm taking the high road, but actually that anger was informing you of something, or that guilt was trying to, empower you to set a boundary with your adoptive mom, saying, Mom, it's okay. It's okay that I have this relationship. I love you. But there's this other woman that I need to know too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and
You're welcome.
I'll be thinking about this for quite some time. I promise you that.
If you ever want to do a session, you can go on our website. This is what we do. I mean, we're professionals.
Get in there. So it's not fair, Stuart, probably.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Stuart, are you open to whatever might happen?
Yeah, no, I'm up for it. No problem.
All right, let's go. Let's see what Spirit says. Message or they're
An emotion.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, an emotion. Okay, now we're on the clock. I'm joking. All right.
Something you're feeling helpless about.
Yeah, that was the energy I was picking up, right? Wanting to control. Right. What age?
37.
Something that happened at age 37 that you felt helpless about? Does it involve someone? No. Maybe a job.
Yeah, maybe a job. Yeah. What were you doing at 37? Do you remember?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's about 20 years ago now. So, yeah, I can't remember what I was doing then. Yeah, that was a few things were happening then. A lot of changes.
Yeah. Did you work in IT?
I have in the past, but at that time, I reckon I was still probably working as a forest firefighter.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay. All right. So, but I could feel IT energy around you. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's where are we
Well,
looking at?
can you sense, can you connect helplessness to that time in your life in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, there was some changes going on for me economically, business wise, everything. Yeah, definitely. There were those energies around.
Yeah, my finger's dropping when you say that, so
He feels like he missed out on an opportunity.
that drops.
So it's like someone got ahead, like, you know,
Yeah.
someone's business grew, or he missed out, or he should have jumped in on something. Feels like, is that, did you miss a potential opportunity?
Some things went not to plan, but
Yeah.
it wasn't ideal and it was difficult, but I kind of learnt from it and grew from it.
Right. So, but unfortunately, remember when you were asking Spirit about AI and they said there's a limitation, and I could feel the want to control. This is the energy that they were kind of showing me. So back then you couldn't control the situation, and it's still somewhat unresolved in your subconscious. So now you're looking on your external and you're saying, gosh, is AI is, you know, because I feel like there's an energy in there that needs to be some healing. So it probably takes some time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would take a session for us to go in there and help you with that. But if it's something you want to work on, I mean, you know how to, you know, our website, you can reach us. But I feel
Thank
like
you.
like I feel like it's there, but I go back to when he's younger too. Like
Yeah.
there's a younger age that I want to go back to too.
Yeah. Age 8.
Age 8. So we're looking at age 8 and age. They're going to give you one more word at age 8.
Oh, empty promise.
Yeah,
Maybe something.
something with his dad.
Yeah.
Oh, life's an empty promise.
Life. Yeah.
It's like I feel like he's at school and he's not achieving. There's some maybe comparison,
Yeah.
like not getting the part or not getting the whatever, something going well at school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, yeah, I can see where that would be an issue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've always been a little bit different, which I kind of learnt to embrace as I got older. So it's less of an issue for me now, but I
Right.
hear what you're saying with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see spirit saying it's here, and then it's in your
Because it's
present.
still the helpless energy, right?
Yeah.
So that's the repeating fractal. It's geometric. Like you can actually, Greg Braden has a whole thing on this stuff. It's fascinating.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and then you can actually predict when the next thing would happen. So helpless is like you're not in your power in some way, shape, or form in your life that your soul wants you to get in power. And this is one of probably the life lessons. Everyone came here to learn certain life lessons. This is one that they're showing you now that's on your plate and so on. But it's a good thing ultimately, right? Because you're like, once you get it, then you don't, one, have to repeat it, and two, you have your power. And you can use it in ways that would enhance your life and those around you perhaps and so on. So this is the thing, like it's pretty hard because our senses are very convincible. They convince us that this is happening to us and we're separate from it, and I'm small and disconnected, and then there's fear and so on. But when we start to recognize that this is being drawn to us, or it's a reflection, and I can fundamentally make shifts to change these things, then you're back in your power, and then the fear goes away and you reveal more and more of who you are as this divine being, you know, a creator in your own right. So not separate from the divine, but part of it. And then once we recognize that, then that's where it's all going. But like I said, we weren't given the rules of the game. We're thrown into the situation, just like almost like we send people home with babies. There you go. We're doing this thing. You know, we're learning on the fly, but sometimes we don't learn. So we need to be able to recognize that this very powerful part of us is responsible. And then when people get sick and people get ill and it's because these patterns go unresolved. And so this then becomes but we live in a culture, it's like, well, it just happened willy-nilly and I'm crossing my fingers, making sure nothing happens to me. But,
or I'm not looking.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you could say the same thing with what's going on in our world, but if you put your head in the sand, you know, your butt is still in the air. The truth sets us free. What is the truth? And when you can ask that with earnest, and it's not always easy, but ultimately there's liberation in that place, because denial or whatever, repression, eventually will come back. And this is mythology. When you cut off a dragon's head, it grows 2, or the hydra, and then you cut off a 2 and it grows 4. You cannot win that game ultimately. So we have to face our demons. We have to face whatever we're drawing into our lives. But that's the liberation that waits on the other side of that.
I have a question for you, Stuart. Do you have a child? Do you have children?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. How many?
3.
Yeah, I feel like one of your children. So what happens is, if you don't resolve that, then one of them could be carrying that pattern as well. And so when you make that change, those codes, and I'm talking esoterically now, are available in the family lineage now. So the motivation, sometimes with clients, we say, okay, I know not everybody, sometimes people need motivation. And I'm like, okay, if you're not, do it for your kids, because one of them is going to carry that. And is it 1, 2, or 3? Which one?
Third one.
Your third child, your
yeah.
youngest child is carrying something for you. So as a result of that, that's going to infect them, and that's Spirit's word, infect, in a way, because so now we're spreading it down. So these types of things, I mean, we see this every day. We do our work every day. We meet these mirrors with consciousness, because this is the shattering of the illusion. See, the false matrix, the false light, is what keeps us from our divinity and our divine light, right? And so when you see that balance of power shift in you, you're gonna see the effects change in your children, and yeah, so it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I had some childhood trauma which created some echoes in early adulthood, and I've become aware of them, and I am working on them.
Wonderful.
It kind of helped me to become more empathetic too.
Yeah. There's always purpose to our trauma. Like, it's something, we set it up, right? And we go through it, and then it's like, well, what are you going to do with it now? It's how you react to it. What do you take that woundedness, and what do you turn it into? What do you create with it? So that's where the empowerment comes from. So that's wonderful.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Wow. Well, I wasn't. Yeah, we never know where our conversations are going to go, but this was definitely
different, I'm sure.
Unexpected. So, could you guys just let everybody out there know where they can get a hold of you if anyone wants to reach out and either learn more about you or have a session, like what we just had?
Okay, so there's a couple ways to kind of engage with us. One is, I wrote a channeled book. It's called The Way to Peace. I have it here. So the cool thing about this toroid is that was selected by Spirit, that image off of, I forget anyway, one of the image places that you can buy. And so that has a code of the divine feminine in it. And that whole book is about the matrix, the false illusion, the map out of the manipulation of the mind. It's 60 pages. It's a short book, but it maps out this darkness, that we've been alluding to. And yes, we're only focusing on the negative side of it, but it's to give you freedom. Our website is thenatureofus.ca. We're from Canada, and so we have .ca, but you can get in touch with us. You can book a session. We have, right now, we're just launching our online workshops, but we are traveling through Ontario and teaching live workshops and online as well. So there's a way we brought through a process, a healing process that was gifted to us by the divine after about 3 years of preparing to receive it. And it's a chakra-based process that helps people engage in each layer of the chakra system so that the Kundalini can rise. Some of this freedom that we've been talking about that's buried in the subconscious. Again, your listeners would probably say, well, how does that apply to my interest in UFOs? It goes back to all of those unresolved fractals that we've been talking about. How are we attracting this into our lives, and how can we make a change internally so that things aren't drawn to us, these experiences aren't magnetically drawn to us. So yeah, so that's how you can reach us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Reverend Stu, any final comments from you?
Yeah, I want to thank you both for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. We've been very blessed by it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting both of you guys, Jennifer and Darryl. Thank you, and you gave me a lot to think about. I might be calling you up soon.
All right. So I'm okay. Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. So yeah, we're here anytime you want to talk again.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Stuart, let's get personal.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting that conversation to end up where it did. And during our little break, I was pondering, and I did some math, and it was right around that time that I made contact. And I thought that I had reconciled that. But the fact that they don't know me, I don't really know them. We basically don't know each other. And of all things to sort of pick up on, that's why I had asked them for a name. I knew that probably sounded weird to them, but they had no idea what the backstory was. And I'm going to keep that in there because it seems appropriate. And we're still speaking generally, like I don't reveal my full identity anyway, so nobody really knows who we're talking about. But I do, and everyone listening can tell that this is something happened just there. And it was quite darn interesting.
Yeah, I'm happy for my stuff to be left in there too, Mike. So I need to do some calculations and kind of look through my history a bit, but they seem to be touching on something with me too, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, that's why I said, are you ready to for whatever comes out, right? Yeah, so I mean, on one hand, I could see some people saying, like, why are you guys even talking about this kind of stuff? It has nothing to do with UFOs, but it really does, because everything is really interconnected, and it's about consciousness, and I think it's about our souls at the end of the day.
Well, as we've discussed in the past, like it's what you bring to it. So it's reflecting, the phenomena is reflecting back your own state. So if you can get your own state balanced, then you're only going to have a better experience going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I also think it's interesting. We just recently talked about protection and protecting yourselves when getting involved with some of these things. And there were some valid comments made in that other episode where it's like, well, you don't really need it. Like the things you're trying to protect yourself from aren't going to listen. But then again, seeing what we just saw, and I think that's a valid thing where, to some extent, like if you're going swimming in a lake or a river or something that's contaminated, you can go in your birthday suit and maybe you'll get a virus or something, but if you put a wetsuit on, you won't. Now, it's not going to protect you from, a big, sharp, jagged rock that could poke through it, but it's going to protect you from a majority of stuff. So I do think that the protective element, to some extent, is an important thing for anyone who's wanting to explore this kind of stuff on their own.
Yeah, that's very interesting because you got the whole Zen state where you just don't try and affect any outcomes, just let things happen as they happen. But then you've got the aspect where you're trying to create some boundaries for yourself, which I think is fine too. So I'm also in two minds about that whole topic.
Yeah, it's just kind of wanted to float that out there because I think it's valid.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a firm decision on that. I think each case is separate and individual. So I'm still open to the protection aspect. I guess it's a paradox. You don't want to be protecting yourself from things that might help you grow. So where do you draw that line? So that's an interesting topic to explore as well.
It's like you need to be open enough to let in whatever, but you don't want to be too open to let in whatever. It is a paradox.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, it's something you got to monitor in yourself, I would say.
Indeed. That's all I got, man. I wasn't expecting that ride. Very, very different.
Yeah, it's another one of these situations where I need some time after we shoot the show to absorb it, because I listened to it a couple of times afterwards and I glean more information about the guests and our show and the knowledge they're trying to impart. So I'm going to definitely have a bit of a deep dive into that and also the parts of my life they were referencing.
Awesome. And absolutely. I do the same. And I've heard from a couple people out there who check out the show that they go back and they listen to it more than once as well. And these are big conversations that we're having. They're long, yes, and they're also very profound in a way. So, this is not a one and done thing. You know, definitely check them out over and over again, and you'll probably get out something a little bit different every time you do it.
Well, there's a parallel here, Mike, with the way we let the shows take their own course. So we're not laying down the law to the guests saying, well, you must talk about this and you must not talk about that. And I really like that. Mm-hmm. So that ties into this kind of protection thing too. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like I do need to put out one more thing there too, because there are people approaching us, which is great. We're always on the lookout for other new guests and things like that. But we also want to make sure that we are somewhat on the lane that we're in. And sometimes people reach out to us that are just not close enough to our topic, so it doesn't really work out. But in this case, I think it was, a very good, meshy thing that does fit in quite well.
Yeah, that's the complexity of this subject, because it intersects with so many different aspects. And that's why we're having this discussion on this podcast, the intersection between the nuts and bolts aspect and the esoteric side of this issue. So it is a little bit nebulous and difficult to navigate, but I think we're doing a good job here, Mike. I've been feeling very good about the show.
I agree. I think we're probably both a little biased, but I do agree with you too.
I think this is my favorite show.
Yeah, mine too. There's lots of other good shows out there too, but we're doing what we want to do, what feels good to us, or what we're interested in, and that's quite different than most other podcasts out there.
Yeah, well, see, you and I met through music, and we've created our own songs and album in the past, and that's got a Mike and Stuart feel about it, and I love that feel, and that's what I think we bring to this podcast. I
couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And hopefully everybody out there agrees. Drop us a comment too. Let us know what you like, if you have any questions out there, or ideas of things you want us to cover in the future.
All right, we love your input, and we love you coming on this journey with us. We just love you. Take care. Absolutely.
And remember to subscribe and hit the bell and share it and comment. And all of those things do help the robot tell other people that they should be hearing these conversations too.
Thank you so much, Mike.
See you next time.